This year, the Petersburg Athletic Hall of Fame is a one-of-a-kind class. In this group, we have the sport of wrestling, football, basketball, swimming, and for the first time we've ever done this before in our previous 4 classes, we are inducting a contributor to the Hall of Fame. Our first inductee, slight change, but he is simply known as the Clue, Mr. Ernest Shaw. Mr. Shaw was a part of the Peabody High School class of 1952. His career as a sports writer began in the 7th grade at the Progress Index. He was not only one of the youngest writers in the newspaper's history, he was also the first Black sports writer at the paper. He covered many of the big sports stories in the area, to include Peabody's VIA state championship basketball teams in 1951 and 1960, along with their national tournament game in Nashville, Tennessee. Not only was Shaw a great writer, he was also the sports and entertainment news voice on radio in Petersburg at WSSV from 1961 to 1984. As a DJ, he was known as Mr. Clue, when listeners picked that name from a list of 3 that included Mr. Wonderful and Mr. Precious. I kind of like Mr. Precious better, but the biggest names in music would visit Shaw when they traveled through Petersburg. James Brown, The Temptations, Sam Cooke, Jackie Wilson, Mary Wilson, Chubby Checker, just to name a few. In fact, there's a story or 2 that says Shaw took Wilson to a Peabody homecoming dance and that he invited Checker to a softball game. Shaw was so well known in the music circles, he was on American Bandstand in the 60s. Shaw received many awards for his sports accomplishments. He was named IBPOE Elk of the Year in 1986. 6 years later, the NAACP named him Man of the Year. The city of Petersburg proclaimed Ernest Mr. Clue Shaw Day in 1962. He was inducted into the VIA Heritage Association Hall of Fame in 2016. A member of the Tuskegee Airmen. And tonight, is the newest member of the Petersburg Athletics Hall of Fame. Ladies and gentlemen, Mr. Ernest Shaw.
I take this opportunity to thank you for your wonderful support. Also, I'd like to say I'm on the winning team. The winning team is, if you don't know, is God and his wonderful staff. Many people have been successful in life, including my family. I'd like to flip a few names that helped me a lot in life. Some of them have kissed the saying a good time by. There would be John Dexter Hill, John Brown, and the wonderful Hardy Bunch. Also, the Mason, the Elks, also Peabody alumni, Virginia State alumni, and some of the old guys who helped me in the Progress Index, who no longer with us, Curtis Lyons, Jack Thorpe, Victor Thorpe, and just to name a few. Do y'all remember the program called Charlie Angel? Yes. Okay, I have 3 angels, but they're not with me, but I like to name them. One was my mother, Miss Mattie Bird. A second one is my wife, Miss Vivian Shaw. And the third one was my mother-in-law, Miss Laura Sweet Parley Johnson. So I too have 3 angels. And they really dwell with me. Also, if I leave out anyone, I'm sorry. But also my church family, Dr. Wesley K. McLaughlin, his son Jamie, and the Mount Olive family. Also, I'd like to thank Reverend Kevin Jefferson, who supported me very dearly. But before I close, I'd like to share a joke with you. You know, every time it's thunder or rain, this would be a young girl run out and it's lightning, she smiled. Okay, the second time she did it, her mother became alarmed. And she said, why are you running out there in lightning? You could get struck by lightning. She said, well, Mom, you don't understand, but I'm going to try to tell you why. She said, Jesus is taking my picture. I want to look the best. So in closing, only what you do for Christ will last.
Congratulations.
Our next inductee was pretty good at baseball and then became a well-respected educator, Dr. Robert Golder. Golder was a part of the Petersburg High School class of 1957, and at the age of 16 was a member of the baseball team that won the 1957 Central District Championship. Golder hit .386 that year and led the team and was also first team All-District. After a standout high school career, Golder went up I-95 to Ashland and Randolph-Macon College, where he continued to rack up accolades. He was a 4-year letter winner, team captain, 2-time All-Mason-Dixon selection, and was part of 2 conference championship teams in 1960 and 61. He would graduate from Randolph-Macon in 61 and will eventually sign a major league contract with the Minnesota Twins. Golder was assigned to the Wytheville Twins, where he played in 51 games and hit 6 homers. He was part of a team that had 5 future major league players, to include Tony Oliva. Once the season was over, Golder decided to change plans and go into education and administration. He became a math teacher at Colonial Heights High School. He also served as the Colonial's JV and varsity baseball coach. He was the athletic director, the assistant principal, director of adult education. He might have served lunch in the cafeteria. He was also a principal at Rehoboth Elementary in Dinwiddie County, a baseball coach at Randolph-Macon, chairman of the Central District, chairman of 27 Tri-City Central Region High Schools, chairman of the VHSL Sportsmanship Committee, along with co-founding and being a lifetime member of the Tri-City Basketball Officials Association. Ladies and gentlemen, the newest member into the class of 2019, Dr. Robert Golder.
Thank you. Everyone had told me what a tremendous affair this was going to be, and I really see what they meant by that. I give all the credit to Mr. Bill Lawson and the committee that put this together, and I'm really overwhelmed to be included as an inductee. As I look back over the names of so many great athletes and coaches and contributors that have already been inducted, sometimes I feel very undeserving. And this is a tremendous honor for me. I'm deeply touched, and I feel a lot of joy and happiness in being about it. I would like to make just 2 corrections on what you said, Sean. First of all, I'm not a doctor. And second, I didn't coach at Randolph-Macon. I coached at Richard Bland. Richard Bland had a baseball team for about 2 years in this first 2 years, 1970s, I think it was. And I coached the baseball team out there for that 2-year period that they had a baseball team. I graduated from Petersburg High School 62 years ago. That's a long time ago. And but most of my work and most of my life I've lived in Colonial Heights, but Petersburg has a special place in my heart. And if you'll bear with me a few minutes, I certainly would like to express how that expression came about. Thinking about it, and I think probably most of you would realize that over a period of time, months and years kind of run together. But there's always a few of those that stand out where there were life-changing events. And for me, May of 1957 was one of those months. I was 16 years old, a senior at Petersburg High School, a member of the varsity baseball team. One late afternoon in May, we defeated Hopewell 8-2 for the last game of the season to win the Central District Baseball Championship. And what was significant about that was, in their 50s, there had been no championship teams in Petersburg for the whole decade of the 60s, really up until 1957. And there were a lot of great athletes that went through Petersburg High School, and some of them are here tonight. I've talked to some of them already. But there was a reason for that. Petersburg was at a disadvantage. Back in the 50s, Petersburg had an 11-year school system. Everybody else had a 12-year school system. And because of that situation, those 12-year seniors, compared to our 11-year seniors, had a year of athletic ability and skills that was a little bit more developed than we had, and also that, they were more mature, growth, and competitive. But we had a pretty good baseball team. We were not a fluke by any means. There were 15 members on that team. 13 players. We had a manager and a scorekeeper by the name of Hal Nunley, who was already inducted for his accolades at Randolph-Macon as basketball coach. And our coach was Mr. Bobby Churn. And of those 15 individuals, 10 had passed, so it's only 5 of us left. And as I stand up here tonight, I feel like really that I'm kind of representing all members of that team, as well as I'm honored to be receiving this honor tonight. We were a close-knit organization. We were good friends, and so it's really special to be able to have this honor. And I wouldn't be standing here, I don't think, if it wasn't for that baseball team. Our coach was Mr. Bobby Churn, and he made us play better than what we were. We were a good team, don't get me wrong. We had 2 players that went on to play professional baseball. We had 3 that played in the collegiate baseball. But Mr. Churn was special. And for me, out of respect, I never called him Coach Churn. I never called him Bobby or any other nickname. He was always Mr. Churn. And he was a special person. He was the ultimate role model, mentor. He kept up with our academic progress. In and out of school, he kept up with our behavior. He was a true gentleman, and we loved him, and we would do anything we could do for him. He's passed on, but Mr. Churn was really special for us. And the reason that I think that we were able to accomplish that feat of winning that special baseball championship was our practices. And he dwelt on fundamentals, and he went over game situations every day, repeat, repeat, repeat. And he also held us accountable. And when I say that, after a game, we would have a little session where he would go over the game, and he would certainly give praises where it was due. And he always understood that physical errors were a part of the game. But he had no tolerance for mistakes that we made mentally and mistakes that we made as far as fundamentals that we had gone over in practice. And usually the next day we would work on those and try to correct those. And the funny thing was that nobody wanted to be called out by Mr. Churn. So we were pretty focused on what we were doing because we wanted to be successful. And so we ended up having that successful championship season. He instilled in us an attitude that we could beat anybody. I probably played in over 1,000 games in my life, and I never played in a game that I didn't think I was going to win. And I don't think some people can say that in high school, but that was my attitude. And that came about through Mr. Churn. And at no time did he ever say to us, we are at a disadvantage because we were 11th graders, seniors, playing against 12th grade seniors. So, like I said, when we won that Central District Championship, I didn't realize how significant it was going to be to this day. It has opened up so many doors and opportunities, friendships and associations, and even to this day, I still have things that occurred from being on that championship baseball team that I just embellish. And as important as baseball was to me, that wasn't the most important thing that happened to me in May of 1957. In the fall semester of that high school year, I was taking a physics class. And in Petersburg in the 50s, depending on your birthday, you either started school in September or you started school in February. And there was February graduations. And when they had the semester change, you'd get an entirely different schedule for the second half of the school year. And for whatever reason, they could not schedule that physics class I was taking the first half, and I needed it to graduate. So Mr. Gill, my principal, and Mr. Sutherland, my assistant principal, talked Doc Andrews, Mr. Andrews, my physics teacher, into teaching me one-on-one in that physics class. And he would teach for about 30 minutes, go in his back room, drink a cup of coffee, do whatever teachers do during their planning periods, which I know what they do during their planning periods, but, and also read the newspaper. And I would be working on seat work the other 25 minutes. But every day, somebody would bring in the morning announcements and the absentee list, put it on the desk, and walk out. No intercom at that time. This was the mid-50s, or 57 to be exact. But this one day, this nice-looking girl walks in, and she puts the absentee list on the desk and the announcements. And seeing me sitting there, she can't leave it alone. She wants to ask me why I'm there, what's the reason I'm in there by myself. I'm shy, I'm 16 years old, I don't talk to girls much, but I didn't have much choice. I had to engage a conversation with this young lady. And so at the end of the class, I walking in the hall with a friend, I said, who was the girl that came in there and brought the morning announcements? They said her name was Carol Costley. And I thought to myself, I sure would like to meet her. So later that day, I'm walking down with another friend and telling him about the situation. And he said, well, there she is right over there. Go talk to her. And I said, that's not the girl that bought the morning announcements. I later found out her name was Claire Carsley. She lived up at the upper end of Halifax Street near AP Hill School up on what they call Dog Hill. And we have been married now 59 years. Our first date was at the old Bluebird Theater up on North Sycamore Street. We went to see the movie Guns of Fort Petticoat, and it was starring Audie Murphy, who was a World War II hero. And so that was the most important thing that happened in May of 1957. But that was a third thing, and I hope you'll bear with me. I hate to be taking a lot of time, but the third thing was Mr. Churn was also my history teacher. And at the end of class, and this was at the end of baseball season, he said, come on down to the gym after school. I have two people I want you to meet. So I said, sure. I went on down, and as soon as I walked down the hall, I saw Paul Webb, who was an athletic icon at Petersburg High School, and plus my dad used to take me up to McKenzie Street, see him play professional baseball for the old Petersburg Generals. So, and he was coaching basketball at Randolph-Macon at the time, and they introduced me to Coach Hugh Stevens, the legendary coach at Randolph-Macon. And we talked for a while, and Coach Stevens invited me to come up and visit the campus, and he said he'd like for me to consider being a part of his baseball program. And so after graduation, I went up there and I toured the campus with Coach Stevens. He introduced me to a lot of prominent people. He recruited me pretty good, and I fell in love with the school. I had already committed to go to the University of Richmond, and Coach Mac Pitt was the baseball coach there. And I remember, and it's probably a figment of my imagination, but it seemed like he was recruiting my daddy to play golf with him more than he was recruiting me to play baseball. So Randolph-Macon was a choice, and at that time, and probably still today, Randolph-Macon could compete with Richmond in all sports. We played them in football, we played basketball, we played them in baseball. So, I mean, Randolph-Macon's a pretty good school. I got to play 4 years for Randolph-Macon for Coach Hugh Stevens. His practices were exactly like Coach Churn. Coach Churn had played for Hugh Stevens prior to coming to Petersburg to teach school. And so we won some championships. I was able to play 4 years. I built my confidence as far as playing baseball. And so from that standpoint, the best thing was I got a quality education. Back then, Randolph-Macon was known as the Little Harvard of the South. And when I say that, when I enrolled there, I was 220 freshmen. When I graduated, it was 87 freshmen. I'm the seniors, sorry. I was 20 years old and graduated from college. That doesn't sound too smart, but that's what happened. I was pretty young because of that 11-year school system. But the education I got at Petersburg High School was second to none. It prepared me for what I was going to have at Randolph-Macon, and you can see the attrition rate was quite high. One last thing, and I'll sit down. 4 years at Randolph-Macon, I had a month to go before I graduated. I wanted to teach at Petersburg High School and coach at Petersburg High School. I made an appointment with John Meade, who was superintendent of school, a Randolph-Macon graduate. His son David was a friend of mine and attended Randolph-Macon with me. Came down to talk to Mr. Meade, and after just a few minutes, he was pretty blunt. He said, "Bobby," he said, "you're 20 years old. So these boys and girls here are 17, 18, 19 years old, and you know most of them." He said, at that time, they'd gone to a 12-year school system. I think the first year was 59 that we graduated 12-year school system. He said, "I think you'd be better off going somewhere else, and maybe in a few years you could come and teach at Petersburg." So he said, "Let me make some telephone calls." And to show you how respected he was, within a week, I had 3 contracts in the mail without an interview, one from Newport News, one from Henrico, and one from Chesterfield. I called Mr. Thompson, who was the superintendent in Chesterfield, and told him I'd like to accept that since it was close to Petersburg, close to Colonial Heights. And I didn't know exactly what school I was going to be assigned. He said, "I have 2 offers for you. You can be JV baseball coach and history teacher at Midlothian High School, or you can be math teacher and JV baseball coach at Colonial Heights High School." Well, that was a no-brainer for me. I'd taken a lot of math courses in college. Math was more comfortable than history. And, of course, I got to coach, and I'd be close to my home in Colonial Heights and the people I knew in Petersburg, so I accepted that position. I was able to work in Colonial Heights 39 of my 41 years, 2 years in Dinwiddie County, and Colonial Heights has been my home. The only time I didn't pull for Petersburg was when Colonial Heights was playing Petersburg, and that's only the normal thing to do. But you can see how Petersburg affected my life as far as family, education, career, and also baseball, which is the love of my life also, in addition to my wife. So I'm a believer that things just don't happen by accident. I believe the good Lord orchestrates our lives. I know I came into this world with nothing, and I'll go out of this world with nothing. But over the years, the good Lord had a blueprint for my life, and he also gave me a life full of choices. And I certainly made a lot of mistakes in those choices over the years. But as I grew in my faithfulness, and I put my faith and trust in the good Lord, I feel like he has blessed me beyond measure. And I have a lifetime of 78 years that I wouldn't trade for anything in this world. And I owe it to the good Lord who has blessed me all those years. Thank you for bearing with me. And one other thing, I want to congratulate all of these individuals up here who are receiving this award. I can't even imagine the emotions they feel, because I know the emotions that I feel. But they have a lifetime of achievements on the athletic field as well as in their personal life. So congratulations to each of y'all. Thank you.
Our next inductee is a first, and we have another first in our Petersburg Athletics Hall of Fame. Prior to this year, we never had an inductee who went in as a swimmer until this year. I introduce, I believe, Dr. Robert Grossman. This is a real doctor. Dr. Robert Grossman. There you go. You could give a round of applause for that. Dr. Grossman was born in Richmond but moved to Petersburg after World War II. He was introduced to the sport of swimming at an early age at the Petersburg YMCA. Grossman started swimming competitively for the YMCA team at age 9, as well as statewide AAU meets. He was a state champion at 10 years old in the 50-yard breaststroke and the 75-yard individual medley. At 15, he was the Virginia YMCA and AAU champion in the 100-yard breaststroke, 100-yard butterfly, and the 200-yard individual medley. In 1956, he was a state champion and a record holder in the 400-yard individual medley, and did all of this without a true swimming coach. In addition to swimming, he was a pretty good tennis player. He lettered in both tennis and swimming his final 2 seasons. He graduated from Petersburg High in 1956 and would attend Virginia Tech, where he would swim under head coach Dick Redding. Grossman was a 4-year letter winner at Tech and led the Hokies to the 1957 Southern Conference Championship, the school's first ever title in swimming. Grossman went undefeated in dual meet competition in both the breaststroke and individual medley events in both his junior and senior years, and won the 1959 Southern Conference Outstanding Swimmer Award after winning 3 events in the conference championships. He would go on to win that as well in his senior season at Tech. Won the individual titles in the 100 and 200-yard breaststroke during the Southern Conference Championships. After his collegiate career, Virginia Tech honored Grossman by inducting him into the Hokies Sports Hall of Fame in 2002, only the second swimmer to receive that honor. Tonight, he becomes the first swimmer to be inducted into the Petersburg Athletics Hall of Fame. Ladies and gentlemen, Dr. Robert Grossman.
Good evening. If my comments tonight were to have a title, I would have to call it, with a little tongue-in-cheek, Swimmers Get No Respect. Swimmers know exactly how Rodney Dangerfield feels when he says, "I don't get no respect." After the Rio Olympics, a 2016 Time magazine special edition, The Year in Review, profiled, among others, Katie Ledecky, the most decorated female athlete of the 2016 Olympics, with 4 gold, 1 silver, and 2 world records, and Michael Phelps, who competed in his 4th Olympic Games, and that's over a span of 16 years, winning his 23rd Olympic gold medal. And for the first time ever, an African-American woman won gold in an individual swimming event, Simone Manuel. She set American and Olympic records. In 2019, with the April ESPN issue listing the top 100 world fame athletes, not even one swimmer made the list. How many gold medals will it take for a swimmer to be shown some respect and be included in those lists? In 1979, when I competed in the U.S. Masters, the National Long Course Championships, placing 7th in 3 breaststroke events, I called the Progress Index and asked the sports writer, Harry Marsh, if he would write an article on Masters swimming. Not me, Masters swimming. He told me nobody wanted to read about swimming, and there weren't that many of us anyway. Last summer in the local Southside Swim League, the 7 teams had 866 swimmers from ages 6 to 16 in active competition. There are 100 master swimming federations in the U.S. and 200 worldwide. Out of over 70,000 U.S. members, 20,000 actively compete every year. A couple of months later, Mr. Marsh got an award from the Virginia Newspaper Sports Writers Association. There was a nice article about it in the Progress. I called and congratulated him and asked, just how many Virginia newspaper sports writers are there? After a brief silence, he went, He got my message, but he still would not do the article. Swimmers get no respect. Today, the one thing most people get wrong about swimming is thinking it's every 4 years, Olympics. Swimming is every day, 10 times a week, and requires a dedication and commitment unequaled by most sports. I went out for football at Petersburg High School. I really did. All 5'6", 110 pounds of me soaking wet. Fortunately, I didn't make it. But they did offer me the job of water boy. Very appropriate. But I lost out on that in tryouts to Dean Jordan. He could run carrying 2 buckets of water, and I had trouble with 1 bucket. Now, growing up in Petersburg, I never thought of myself as having done anything out of the ordinary. There was no real coach, and we had no PR person, so there wasn't much in the press. And as college follows high school, I moved on to the next level of swimming competition at VPI in those days. Economically, in 1956, times were tough. My dad had 3 boys in college at the same time, but fortunately, I got a swimming scholarship. It was a job in the mess hall serving steaks to the football players. Swimmers got no respect. Now, everybody knows how important coaches are. Tech's freshman track coach was also the freshman football coach, and he was assigned to the swim team as our designated coach, even though he couldn't swim. Again, swimmers got no respect. But we loved our coach, but his degree from Springfield College did not include swimming. We swimmers coached each other, encouraged each other, and trained each other. And I think we did a pretty darn good job. As was stated, my freshman year, we won the Southern Conference for the first time ever. And I finished my senior year with the first time dual meet win over arch rival VMI. As Bobby said, in our day, Petersburg High School was an 11-year system. I was a year younger than most of my competitors, shaving no more than once a month. But looking back, I realize how much I benefited from those 4 years at Tech, academically, socially, and physically. And in swimming, I have to say, I did exceptionally well. And evidently so did Virginia Tech, because they inducted me into the Sports Hall of Fame in 2002. When the Tech Hall of Fame acceptance letter came, my wife, Sibylla, presented it to me with a bottle of champagne. And we celebrated this awesome show of respect. Goodbye, Rodney Dangerfield. I called my college roommate to share this with him. In those days, we were a military school like VMI and the Citadel. He asked me, "Really? What did you do? We thought you were a shirker, a goof off. We thought you swam so you could get out of military formations and drills." My roommate, no respect. 59 years later, when Coach Lawson told me about my acceptance into the PHS Hall, I excitedly called a high school friend, old friend, to share this good news. He asked me, "For what sport?" I told this old, new ex-friend, "Don't you remember? I was a quarterback for our 0-10 record football team." I mentioned to a friend recently that I had just had my 80th birthday last month and had reached old age. Thank you. He said not to worry about old age because it doesn't last long. And the same is true for most of us with the notoriety and recognition of our sports accomplishments. The establishment of the Petersburg High School Sports Hall of Fame changes that. Now these exceptional athletes will be honored and remembered for a little while longer, and I feel very privileged to be a part of this group. In a previous PHS Hall induction, one of the inductees said he felt he should have been recognized sooner than he was. Not me. When Dr. Whelan told me he wanted to nominate me, I said it would never happen. Hell would freeze over first, not because I hadn't been successful in my sport, but because swimming wasn't even a recognized sport at Petersburg High School. Today, there are over 20 high school programs in 7 out of 9 area school districts. And I honestly also never thought that I'd done anything exceptional in high school other than the number of demerit hours I sat in detention hall. To validate and document my nomination, I started going through old newspaper clippings, albums, and such, and I didn't realize what a successful career I'd had until I saw it all written down. Dr. Whelan and that wonderful, tireless worker, Wirt Smith, thought so also, and here I am. Thank you, old friend, and thank you, Wirt. I'm, of course, especially grateful to the selection committee for showing this old swimmer a lot of respect. The wait was well worth it. As with most of us, I attribute my being here tonight to the love, support, and encouragement of my parents. I was in a sport in which I was almost invisible, but they always made me feel like I was Mark Spitz and Michael Phelps. Now, indulge me for just a few more minutes. The message I want to get across about swimming and why it's important that every child be taught to swim is this. The most common cause of death of young black males is drowning. And the leading cause of death for all children, ages 1 to 4, is drowning. In 1971, when my wife Sibylla delivered our first child, her roommate in the hospital had a beautiful baby boy, which she lost at age 2 to drowning in a backyard inflatable pool. I believe we can all relate to stories like this. With the kind help and research of Wayne Crocker's ladies at the library, I have some local and national statistics regarding drownings. Half of the U.S. population doesn't know how to swim. An estimated 70% of African Americans as a legacy of segregation, and 66% of youth qualifying for free or reduced fee lunch do not know how to swim. I'm sure everybody here is familiar with Campbell's Bridge. From 2005 to 2013, at least 10 people drowned in the Appomattox, with many more rescue squad calls for reports of missing persons. From 2005 to 2014, there were in the U.S. 3,536 non-boat-related drownings per year. Think Twin Towers happening every year. I could go on, but I think you get the message. What can we do? Many of us recently attended the dedication and unveiling of the newly renovated YMCA. It's amazing that we have something that wonderful in Petersburg. Some of those responsible for this renovation are here tonight, and you can pat yourselves on the back. You really deserve it. About, or at least 10 years ago, the YMCA of Greater Richmond started a program to teach every school child in Petersburg to swim. This program now includes one Dinwiddie school. Approximately 400 second graders from our 4 grade schools are bused once a week for 7 weeks to the Y and are taught to swim. In conjunction with the Greater Richmond YMCA, this program reaches over 3,000 children a year. Our YMCA director, Marco Callender, is with us here tonight. Marco, would you stand? Thank you, Marco. I would like to suggest that if you want to make a financial contribution to support something in our city, make it to the YMCA. You just might be saving a child's life. Thank you.
Our next inductee this evening has the distinction of being one of 5 persons to have both their number retired inside the William Lawson Gym and now be a member of the Petersburg Athletics Hall of Fame. That is Mr. Kenny Harris. Harris is a member of the Petersburg class of 1989. During his time with the Crimson Wave, Harris's numbers improved each year under the late Coach Lawson. He averaged 10 points his sophomore season. They went up to 14 a night his junior year, and then increased to almost 28 points per game his senior year. He scored over 1,000 points in his career at Petersburg High. Harris was named Central District Player of the Year, Central Region Player of the Year, named to the All-Central District, Region, and All-State teams, played in the McDonald's Capital Classic game his senior year in Washington, D.C. Who can forget the performance he had against Hopewell in 1989 when he dropped 50 against Coach Littlepage and the Blue Devils? He also led the Wave to the state championship game his senior year in 1989. After a standout career with the Crimson Wave, he signed with North Carolina and the late Dean Smith. He played in 59 games with the Tar Heels, won an ACC title, along with being on the 1991 team that reached the Final Four. Harris would transfer from North Carolina and would return to the state at VCU under head coach Sonny Smith. He would start 57 games with the Rams, averaged over 13 points and 6 assists in his time there. He was first-team All-State in 1994, second-team All-Metro his junior and senior seasons. After his time at VCU, Harris would receive a tryout with the Chicago Bulls. He would go on to play professional basketball in the CBA for 3 seasons with the Shreveport Crawdads. That was the nickname? It's a great nickname, Crawdads, I love it. He would eventually play overseas in Germany and Australia for 3 seasons. He averaged 16 points and 6 assists there as well. Ladies and gentlemen, the newest member into the Petersburg Athletics Hall of Fame, Mr. Kenny Harris.
Thank you, sir. Good evening, good evening. All right, let me put my clock on. I said I was going to give myself 4 minutes because Little Bill, we call him Little Bill, you know, his father was a stickler for following instructions, so I want to make sure my time hasn't started yet, so there's my clock, stopwatch, start. All right. First of all, I want to start off by thanking Mr. Bill Lawson and the committee for having this wonderful event. It couldn't have been possible without someone taking action, someone doing something, someone believing in something and taking action. So I want to thank Bill and the committee. Secondly, I want to recognize and congratulate all the other inductees today and their families and loved ones who've come out and support them. You all should be proud. Thirdly, I want to recognize and thank my family. Yes. You know, being 47 years old now, you know, you learn to appreciate and be thankful for certain things. And one thing that I'm very appreciative of and thankful for is my family. Through good and bad, rough times, good times, you know, I love you and I appreciate all of you. And thank you for being here today. And the third thing is I want to leave you with one simple truth. You know, I believe that whenever we communicate or whenever you share, you want to leave people with a truth, because a truth is something they can build on. One of my favorite scriptures in the Bible is in Proverbs. It says, "Wisdom has built her house. She has laid her 7 pillars." And for me, there's no greater pillar, one pillar to build your life on than truth. And the truth I want to leave you with today is the simple truth of the power of believing. I'm here today because someone believed in me. It's as simple as that. And that, you can't take this on my time. You got to push pause, and then when I start again, you got to push start again. You know, you know, the Bible talks about the love of God is God is a consuming fire. And not to get all religious, but God is simply love. So love is a consuming fire. And this person, the person I'm talking about is the late Coach Bill Lawson. He saw me when I was a little skinny 12-year-old kid. And I was at the NYSP program. I was at the NYSP program at Virginia State University. And he was one of the instructors. And he saw me playing basketball. And he called me over to him one day after the session, the basketball session was over. And he said, you know, what's your name? And I told him what my name was. And he said, hey, I want you to come. I'm Coach Lawson. I coach out at the high school. And I want you to, we have summer league teams, and I want you to come out to Petersburg High School tonight. I'm going to put you on a summer league team. And you got to realize something. See, at that particular time, I didn't see much, or I didn't believe much about my abilities. See, that's the thing about the power of believing. And when somebody believes in you, it's usually not at the most convenient or opportune time. It's at the time either A, when you're not even believing in yourself, or, you know, the circumstances just don't look like what it's going to be like. But he saw something. And it's funny because immediately I told my friends, some of my friends, Eric is sitting over there, one of my classmates, you know, Eric and Ryan, Bob, he's here, all those guys. And I said, man, Coach Lawson invited me to come out to the high school and play with the older kids. And they went to work on me. Man! Oh, boy. They went to work on me. What you talking about? Man! I tell my son, I have twin 14-year-old boys. And I tell them this story all the time. They get cracked up. And they went to work on me. Oh, man, now my believing is already minimal. And after talking to my buddies for a few minutes, I said, man, I ain't going up to that school tonight. Boy, you know. So, but I went. I think, even, I don't know, you might have took me up there that night. Now that I think about it, my big sister took me up there. And this is uncharted territory. So I go into the gym, and all these older kids are up there. And, boy, it's intimidating. And I'm like, man. And now, mind you, I've had 1,000 conversations with myself between getting out the car and getting into the gym door. Now, it ain't that far of a walk. I might have had 10,000 conversations and reasons or opportunities to turn back. But I kept putting one foot in front of the other. All because somebody else believed in me. See, he's carrying me on his faith down, because I'm not. That's his faith carrying me. Because he said, I want you to come up here. I'm like, wow. So I get up there, you know, long story short, he puts me on the summer league team. I'm one of the youngest guys up there. He's putting me in a new position. You know, it's just a lot of firsts. You know, from there, I see Coach Thomas back there. We go to camp, you know, and things get really bad. Man, I'm looking terrible. And I'm going back to the room at night, putting my head in the pillow, literally crying myself to sleep. All because this guy believed in me. He saw something. I couldn't see it. And I'm trying to cooperate with him. I'm trying to do my part, but it was looking bad. So that was the first year. Second year, he tells me, and not only that now, he tells me, this is what I want you to do. And at every turn, he demonstrates his belief in me. When I had some bad games, he'd look over at me. He called me over there to him. Next day, I had some more bad games. He'll tell one of the assistant coaches, talk to him. That goes on for a season, summertime. He's always in my ear, telling one of the assistants, talk to me. Telling one of the other older players that coached me during the summertime, this is what I want you to tell him. This is what I want you to help him with. All right? And so out of this experience when I'm 12 years old, fast forward 4 years from then, I look up one day and Dean Smith walks through the gym door. So, all us high school kids, we in a frenzy. Right before practice, Dean Smith walked through the door. We looking around, so we just trying to stay focused right now, because he is back then what Krzyzewski is today, or Kyler Perry is today. And if you're a young basketball player, you see one of these guys walk in the door, you don't know what to do. So coach get us all together and organize. So we start practicing. That goes well. And then 2 nights later, we play Dinwiddie. Dean Smith walks in the door again. He's sitting down in the front row. So we look and we like, man. So we play. Coach leading us. Stay focused. Here we're going. So then a couple of nights after that, and it's funny, I was telling Mark and Matthew this the other night, but I remember we had the phone on the wall in the kitchen. And that's the phone Dean Smith called me on. And I just remembered this the other day, so I answered the phone. He's like, Kenny in his little southern drawl, this is Dean Smith. I said, hey, Coach, how you doing? He said, hey, we want to bring you down to Chapel Hill for a visit. So I'm like, wow. I got off the phone. I'll never forget it. We had a little chair in the kitchen, and I just sat there for a few minutes. Now, all of this is happening. Yeah, I did my part. I practiced. I listened to Coach. But all of this started with a seed of Coach Lawson believing in me. So I go visit Chapel Hill, come back home. I knew I wanted to go there before I even left, so I stopped at the bookstore and bought a hat. And when I came back to Petersburg, I walked up the sidewalk. Coach Lawson was sitting in the gym, and he saw me walking toward him with the hat on, Carolina, and he just started laughing. So I said, wow, this was a course of 4 or 5 years, and there were some really rough days. There were some days, man, it looked like, I don't know what Coach see. Teammates, they mumbled it, especially when he was trying to break me in with the older kids, But he was willing to go it alone, even if some of the assistants, some of the other players didn't believe in me. He saw something. And he told me what he saw. He said, when I first saw you, you was a forward, but I saw you being a guard. I saw you 3 or 4 years down the road. I saw you doing what you're doing your senior year. And he not only saw that, but he did everything to birth it. What do I mean? If I said, Coach, can I get in the gym? He would come all the way from his house in Ettrick, pick me up right there on the hikes, right before you cross the bridge, going down Johnson Road. Open up the gym. Take me all the way back there, drop me off. Wouldn't say anything. And if I said it again the next day, he'd do it again. Then it got so good, he said, Bill, you go pick him up. Oh, that's the truth. Because me and Bill were the same age. It got to a point where he's like, little Bill, you pick him up. And Bill picked me up. That's why I said when she was talking earlier about little Bill, and I'm going to talk a little bit about that in the last minute and a half. But, little Bill, listen. This right here, okay? Make sure I'm doing my time. So the power of believing. So I'm here because Coach Lawson believed in me. And then that belief, he birthed that belief into me. So I started believing in myself. All right? I started believing in myself. So in closing, I just want to encourage you to continue to believe in your family. Continue to believe in your community. Continue to believe in your church. Continue to believe in your city, Petersburg, Virginia. And most importantly, the mission of this city. Because as long as there's one person here in this city that's going to believe that God has a plan for Petersburg, and that God has a plan for everybody that lives in Petersburg, and that God has a plan for every child in Petersburg, this city has a chance to give birth to that blessing, because even if it only takes one person to believe it. And Bill, I just want to acknowledge Bill. All right? Many of you, we're from many different generations in here, but Bill and I came up together. And Bill, I just want to say, man, I'm proud of you. Your father believed in this city. He believed in every child that came through. Coach didn't just believe in basketball players. Coach believed in every student athlete that walked through them doors. And he planted that seed into you, Bill. And you've been faithful, brother. And I just want to applaud you, tell you I'm proud of you. Because I know it ain't easy. I know there's some days when it ain't easy to believe. But I can guarantee your dad will be proud of you. Because being a father now myself, a father ain't gonna want much but that his child just do the best they can, keep believing, don't turn back, and never give up. And that's been you, Bill. I love you, man. Thank you.
And with that, we're going to introduce our next inductee. He started as a Crimson Wave, became a Wolf Pack, and then finally became a Tiger. Marco Harrison. Harrison was part of the class of 1995 who excelled on the basketball court during his time with the Wave. He played all 4 years under Hall of Fame coach Lawson and contributed all 4 seasons, but none like his final year in the burgundy and gold. During Harrison's senior season, he averaged 19 points, 19 rebounds, and 6 blocks. And here are a list of the accomplishments he achieved in his senior year. Central District Player of the Year, Central Region Player of the Year, All Metro Player of the Year, Times Dispatch All-Star Team Member, AP Group AAA First Team, McDonald's All-American, a member of the Nike All-Star Team, VHSL All-Star East Team member, and Mr. Basketball in the state of Virginia by the Roanoke Times and World News. After high school graduation, Harrison would play for NC State and head coach Les Robinson. He would stay in Raleigh for 1 season before transferring back to his home state and play at St. Paul's College in Lawrenceville under the late Ed Joyner. Now, I covered the CIAA for a few years with my time at Virginia State. Needless to say, the St. Paul Tigers teams in the late 90s, where Marco was a member of that team, there were some great nights, even though I was working for Virginia State. It was a show when St. Paul would play, either in Taylor Whitehead or in Daniel Jim. Those teams in the late 90s, they would put on a show, and Marco was a big part of that. After graduating with a degree in criminal justice, Harrison returned to the sidelines as an assistant coach with the Tigers. From there, he would go on to become a teacher, first at Brunswick County and currently at E.W. Wyatt Middle School in math. Ladies and gentlemen, the newest member of the Petersburg Athletics Hall of Fame, Mr. Marco Harrison.
Good evening. Well, when I found out this recognition came with a speech, I told Bill, thank you. And it'll be an honor. So bear with me. Thank y'all for coming out. God bless you. Good night. Seriously, good evening, everyone. And again, congratulations to everybody. I'm truly blessed and humbled to be able to stand before you, to be recognized as a Hall of Famer. I would like to thank my family for their endless support throughout the years, and especially for being here today to share this moment with me. I was just playing ball. Honestly, it was not until I had to think of what I had accomplished until I said, I guess I was all right. I cannot stand here before you without talking about my basketball hero, Coach Lawson. I am forever grateful to Ms. Lawson and Bill for sharing him with me. You see, I was not a basketball player. I was an at-risk kid with height and natural, but undeveloped talent. Fortunate for me, Coach Lawson saw purpose. When I did not show up at practice, Coach showed up at the river. Thanks, Aunt Sue, Gerald, and rest in peace, Uncle Jack. Through life challenges, he developed me and my basketball skills, and I developed a love for the game. He did not just prepare me for a future in basketball, but a future beyond basketball. Although God's plans was different than mine, I enjoyed the plan he has for me. I don't worry about things beyond my control because that time can be spent making a difference. My story has included teaching, coaching boys and girls basketball, who are now young men and women, but think enough of me to still call me coach. Several of them now coach, and that's the power of paying it forward. But most important, I'm a husband to my high school sweetheart and a father to an amazing son who carries my name and who just so happens to love basketball. What a sweet Crimson Wave ride to my purpose. Thank you to everyone who saw fit to select me as an inductee. Thank you for all my coaches that put time into me. Thank you for Ms. Lawson and Bill. Bill, I just wanted to say thanks for being a big brother and steering me in the right direction. Thank you.
We're going to move on, and we're going to talk about two of the best wrestlers that ever stepped foot in Petersburg. And we're going to start with our first inductee for wrestling, who was great on the mat and also a great coach as well, Hal Miles. Got a standing ovation for that. I think that's the first. Coach Miles was a part of the Petersburg class of 1974, the last to graduate from the old high school. He was a two-sport letter winner in wrestling and football. He was a part of 3 straight Central Region Championship wrestling teams in 1972, 73, and 74. Individually, he won the Central District Championship in the 138-pound weight class in 1974 and was Central Region runner-up in that weight class. After graduation, he attended Virginia State University, then known as Virginia State College, where the accolades continued to follow him upon the hill. He began his collegiate wrestling career with 19 straight wins. And during his 3 years at VSU, his record was 81-11. Those your people over there. Miles was a 3-time All-CIAA wrestler, 2-time All-NAIA Region 7 wrestler. He qualified and competed in the 1975 Division II National Championships and was the 1977 Virginia Collegiate Athletic Association state champion. He would go on to be a wrestling official after VSU dropped the wrestling program during his senior year, and would make history in 1980 by becoming the first black official in the Central Region Wrestling Championships. In 1983, VSU brought wrestling back and named Miles as its head coach. During his 7 years, he coached 9 CIAA champs, 6 Division II All-Americans, and was inducted into the VSU Hall of Fame in 1990. Miles would return to Petersburg High as their wrestling coach in 2004. And the championship goal would follow. He coached 10 district championships, 2 regional champions, 4 Outstanding Wrestler Award winners, and 3 Group AAA state place winners. He also made some history in 2015. He became the Waves co-ed soccer coach and became the first in school history to win a match. Yeah, he's not just a wrestling coach. He can work the pitch as well. Miles would also coach at Matoka from 2015 to 2017, in which the Warriors won 2 team conference titles, the 2016 Group 5 state championship, and was also named Conference Coach of the Year. Ladies and gentlemen, the newest member into the Hall of Fame, Mr. Hal Miles.
Yeah, I can stand here and tell you what I have done, but I prefer to tell you what God had done for me and the people that he put into my life. First of all, I'd like to thank my family, starting with my wife. I took her to the prom when we was in high school in 1974. And that relationship kindled again in 2011. We got married. And after I lost my first wife for 28 years, and God sent her my way. That's what a blessing. That's what God do for you when you try to do the things God wants you to do. I want to thank my family for coming out here. My brother flew in from Phoenix. Ira, he's the business owner, Van, and his wife Angie came here from Durham. My sister Peggy, I just lost my brother Willie, her husband, on March the 23rd. And Willie was the one that took me around and showed me. He was my first coach as a little boy. Took me to the movies, took me to the park, took me swimming, got me a lot of beatings following behind Willie. And, but anyway, he showed me courage. When I was a little boy, we was in Newark going to the movies, and a lady got paid. She was coming out the bank, an older lady and an elderly lady, and somebody snatched her pocketbook. This guy was in college, and he ran this guy down, pushed him up against the wall, and retrieved the lady's pocketbook. And I said, wow, that's the type of courage I want. And that's what I got from my big brother. And the people that had blessed me throughout the years, that have coached me, first of all, I like all the guys that I wrestled with to just raise your hands or stand up and want to recognize, because y'all guys made me. Y'all guys made me. Amen. These guys, these are some of my teammates, and they made me what I was. When I first went out for wrestling, I went out there, I bit off more than I could chew because Mike was the star of the team. He was one of the stars of the team, and Tommy Parker and Tyrone Parker, we went out there. We tough guys, so we in the 10th grade. These guys been wrestling since the 8th grade. And they said, I said, who's the toughest guy down there about my side? They said, Mike. I said, that's who I'm going to wrestle. So for the first 2 years, I did not start because I jumped in there with wrestling Mike. But let me tell you what it did, though. Let me tell you what it did. My junior year, I'm rolling around with Mike. I'm challenging Mike. And Coach Smith allowed me to challenge him. As I got a little better, I challenged him. I lost. And one guy on the team, because that team was the best team Petersburg High ever had. The team was 73. Y'all got to stand up again. I want people to see. That team been supporting it. That's a tough team. And best team Petersburg High ever had. I'm talking about, I seen them all. And the guy that was at the weight class above myself, he said, me and Mike, he said, man, you ain't going to never beat Michael Moore. And a light bulb came on and said, I beat you. And I asked Coach Smith, could I challenge him? He said, yeah, we wrestled all 5 times during the Christmas holiday. I beat him every time, and he was the regional champ. I'm not going to call his name. I ain't trying to put nobody down, but Coach Smith, but he was a senior, and Coach Smith he came to me, and this is what I love about coaching. This is what you can learn. Coach Smith told me, he said, hey, I would like for you to do something for me. I said, what's that? He said, let the guy finish the season. He got a scholarship. I said, yeah. I said, well, I went home and talked to my mother, and my mother thought what Coach Smith was doing was admirable, so I didn't say anything to my teammates. I just let it go. And on January the 15th, after we came off the Christmas break, we had to wrestle Meadowbrook for the regular season championship. And just so happened, we supposed to get a weight allowance of 1 pound, didn't get it. And I'm the backup, and I made weight. So Coach Smith said, man, I'm going to put y'all in there. And we took the second string and beat Meadowbrook for the championship with the second string. And before I went out there, Coach Smith said, man, if you go out there and you don't get pinned, because this is my first varsity match in my life. This is my only varsity match I wrestled my junior year. He said, if you go out there and don't get pinned, we can win. I looked at Coach Smith, shoot, I've been wrestling Michael Moore every day. I went out there, I was beating that guy. I beat that guy 11-2 before I pinned him. And after that, I didn't have a lot. That was the only match I had my junior year. And then my senior year, Coach Smith became assistant principal, and they turned around, and I only had a total of 17 matches. So I finished my whole high school career with 18 matches. I was 14-4. And Coach Smith got me a Division I scholarship with 14-4 record to Howard University. But I decided I want an academic scholarship. So I got a scholarship from Virginia State in chemistry. And when I got there, the wrestling coach was so excited, said, man, you here? You want to help our team? So then he paid for the room and board, and Hercules Corporation paid for my tuition and fees and all my books. So I had a full ride to Virginia State. And that was a blessing. And my family, and the reason why I was able to do that, because God blessed me with family. My brothers, my sister-in-law, then I turned around and here were my kids. And I started coaching, and those kids were just as supported. They was at all the matches, different things like that. My son, he didn't want to wrestle, and I was coaching football, little league football. I was coaching wrestling, and my wife said, don't make them do it. I said, I'm going to give them a choice. They said, what's that? So I got them to the side. I said, your mother said, you got to make a choice. And he said, what's the choice, Daddy? I said, you can wrestle or die. I said, hey, man. I said, what you choose? He looked at me, he said, I choose life. I said, that's right, that's a good choice. Now go back and tell your mother that. Tell her you made that choice, not me. And he ended up leaving Petersburg and going to Appomattox Regional Governor School, and they had no wrestling program. So now the road got hard. And so we practicing in our basement, and guys coming in there. Everybody that practiced in the basement of the dungeon, please stand up. I see Lucas out there. Some of the guys, they practice in that dungeon over there. The coach at Petersburg behind there. We had a wrestling mat in the basement, and the guys would come in there, and we had the cinder block wall mat on the floor, and they'll come out there, and we'd be practicing, and they'll hit the wall. They say, hey, coach, I'm out of bounds. I said, no, the wall is not out of bounds. You got to learn how to come off that wall. You hit that concrete wall, you got to do it. But what I want to do is thank God for all the coaches that helped me, starting out with my 8th grade coach, which is Fox Ramsey. Fox Ramsey right there. Man, these guys made me. I want to talk about the guys that ran the Little League, Larry Toombs, and the guy that coached me in Little League, Jimmy Williams, Little League Baseball. Jimmy Williams, raise your hand. I'm going to tell you a short story about Jimmy Williams, and this is what coaches can do, what these guys said coaches can do for you in your life. I got cut from the Blandford Reds, and I wanted to play baseball. I had another year to go. I was 12, the 13-year-old league, so I got on my bicycle, rode around, saw Paul Williams here walking down the street in Halifax. He had a ball and a bat, and I said, Paul, man, you play baseball? He said, yeah. He said, who you play for? He said, the Tigers. I said, well, I like to play. He said, man, we need somebody. So I went on out there. This Petersburg. So I joined the team, and they let me on the team. They were short guys, and I was happy to have a uniform. I wasn't that good. These guys were really good. Michael Howard, all these guys, they throwing the ball at 80 miles an hour in Little League. And so we got this team was undefeated, and Jimmy Williams was the coach. Now, this is a coach. So I'm sitting up there, me and another little guy named Red, we sitting on the bench. Never been in a game. We played the Blandford Reds. They undefeated, Tigers undefeated. I said, yeah. And to get up there, and coach looked at me, Jimmy Williams looked at me and said, hey, Miles, get your glove. You can play second base. Paul Williams plays second base. He's the captain. I said, you gonna put me in second place? I couldn't find my glove. I couldn't find my hat. I couldn't find nothing. I'm running around looking for this stuff. I said, man, what am I gonna do? I've never been in the game. So he said, just go out there. Now, this is a team, and this is a coach. Paul Williams, he put Paul Williams behind me in the field and put me on second base and when I walked out there, Paul pat me on my back and said, man, don't worry about a thing. I got your back. Hey, that empowered me. When that ball came to me, that ball would hit me in my face, my chest. I didn't let the ball get past me, but the coach empowered me. That's what coaches can do, and that's what I wanted to do as a coach for these young kids. And that's why I'd rather talk about coaching than to talk about wrestling. I want my wrestling team from Virginia State to stand up. I want these guys to stand up. They came from South Carolina, all over the place. These guys are CIAA champions, VCAA champions, all kind of champions, All-American. I want Bill to raise your hand. Raise your hand, Bill, and then I'm going to get the penny. Bill was my first All-American. We had no scholarships when I brought this program back. Bill is from Colonial Heights. I walked out there. I got with his grandfather and said, hey, I need somebody to build a team around. And Bill, 4-time CIAA champion, 2-time All-American. And let me tell you something. He was a freshman, and he came up there now, you know Virginia State, HBCU, and Bill looked at me. He's from Colonial Heights, and I'm talking to him. And the families know each other because he come from a wrestling family, and I come from a wrestling family. The parents know each other, grandparents. So he looked at me, and he had one question. He said, man, how do you think they're going to treat me at Virginia State? And I looked at him, because you got to be real when you're a coach. I said, I can't tell you how they're going to treat you, but I can tell you how I'm going to treat you. And he came to Virginia State, and we made that team, and he was the core of that team, Bill Walmsley. And we had Tim Penny, another 4-time CIAA champion, Kenny White, Wesley Amos, James Hine, and Bruce Nelson. Colonel just retired. Raise your hand, Bruce. Just retired. Y'all guys have a seat, man. I love you guys, man. Thanks for coming out. And the thing is that, hey, when you're coaching, God bless you with people in your life. See, I couldn't do it. My mother taught me when I was playing for Coach Jenkins. My senior year, I started 7 games in football. 8th game, I wasn't starting because some of you might know the flanker, who was almost fantastic, got hurt at the beginning of the year. His name was Elmo Rainey. Some of y'all know Elmo Rainey. And they put me in his place. I was supposed to play defense. So now they put me on offense. I'm not an offense player, but I could block. So they put me on offense. And Coach Jenkins said, hey, man, I got you out there. I'm not going to throw the ball to you, but, you know, you go ahead and block. So when his leg got well, they came in. They put him back in his place. He didn't have to try out. They just gave him the position because he was the better wide receiver. And so I said, can I go back to defense? They said, yeah, I went to defense. And the coach said, yeah, you better than these guys, but, man, we've been together undefeated, and I'm not going to change my defense for nobody. So now I'm on the bench. And so I went home and told my mother, said, I'm quitting football. And she said, no, you're not going to quit. I said, why is that? She said, because the coach cannot go in that game. You need to know, you need to be ready when he called your number. That next game, we played Thomas Dale, and I got the game ball and did not start. See, your parents, your coaches, you see how they play a role in your life. Y'all young people in there, a lot of times you think it's your way. It's not. You need coaches. I got my assistant coaches. All my assistant coaches stand up. Guys that I work with. Pete Petrie, John White, Van. I know, hey, there go Brett over there. A lot of guys. So when I tell you God put people in your life, this journey wasn't alone by myself. Now, I'm going to tell you a little something of how we got to the Olympics in '88. And then I'm going to give you the reason why we got to the Olympics, because I was a motivational coach. And these guys found out about that. And Van was one of the reasons why they found out. They said, hey, man, that guy's a great motivational coach. And so I got a telephone call from a 3-time world champion, Mark Schultz. And he said, hey, man, they gave me your name, and maybe you can help me. I said, what do you need some help with, Mark? He said, doing camps. He said, I heard all your camps make money and all my camps lose money. I said, I don't know about your camps, but my camps do make money. So we got together, and we made, over a period of 3 years, we made about $120,000 a piece just from camps. And we did that because I learned how to do that through the University of Richmond Robbins School of Business. That's where I did my graduate studies at. And so anyway, we did that, and Van told them about being motivation. So in '88, I trained with fox catchers, and I went up to fox catchers, and right before the Olympics, we trained at Virginia State. And as the story goes, the team Foxcatcher, they ended up making a movie about that year going to the Olympics. And the actors were Channing Tatum, Mark Ruffalo, and Steve Carell. And they got nominated in 2015 for an Oscar. And even though they didn't win, my character was supposed to be in the movie played by this guy named Chris McCall. Because of what happened that year at the Olympic trials, we went through a big thing where people was being misleading people. And Mark get a stipend each year for his family of $60,000 to train for the Olympics. And right before the Olympic trial, this guy was denied that stipend. So he can't pay his bills, he can't feed his family, he can't do anything. And we was in the Sheraton because Foxcatcher paid for everything. It was the most elite wrestling club in the world. DuPont was our benefactor, one of the richest families in the world. And so anyway, he wrestled the rubber match on a Friday night, and he lost, and you got to lose the best 2 out of 3, and he lost that match. And I went up there, and I saw it. I said, hey, man, what you doing? And he said, man, I lost everything, man. They took my money. They took everything. Oh, I ain't going to wrestle no more. I said, let me tell you something. I said, I came in here, and you're going to do this. The world tell you you don't belong, and you give up. I said, but see, God gave you a haven that he didn't give everybody else. And that haven is the Met. When you walk out there on that Met, those guys, regardless of what they did to you, they can't do it to you out there. You are in control. You decide of who live and who die in your world. That's your world. And we got to show them right now that you control that world. They might control that financial world, but you control that world. He said, what you expect me to do? I said, I expect you to be the type of man that if you were lying on your dying bed and your family needs you, that you take a deep breath, Get up, hold it in, go do what you got to do, come back, lay down, and die. But don't you die until you do what you got to do. You don't let that control you. And he went out there and he won. And then the next night, then we had to weigh in and we broke a world record because he had binged that day and he was 12 pounds overweight, and we had 90 minutes to make weight. And he made it. He broke the world record. He lost 12 pounds in 90 minutes. That's right. And a lot of people sit up there. That was a part of the movie. But I'm going to cut it short because I hope I didn't miss anyone. I'm going to stop, but I promised somebody they wanted a motivational story. I'm going to give them Petersburg High homecoming story. This is what made me want to represent Petersburg wherever I go. Coach Wayne Warner. If you know Coach Wayne Warner, raise your hand. Raise your hand. That was my coach. He taught me he taught me history in elementary school, and he took me to my first Petersburg High football game. And that's what made me want to represent Petersburg wherever I go in the world. And he took me to that football game. It took me in the locker room. When I was in the locker room, a preacher came in, and they said he was from Decatur, Georgia. And he said they had a woman in that congregation that wasn't doing too well, and she was going to die. And they asked her, was there anything they could do for her? And she said, yeah, before I die, I'd like to see a Petersburg High football game. I said, wow, that blew my mind. I said, man, if I had a choice, and, I would go to the Rose Bowl, Cotton Bowl, the Super Bowl. Here I am, 11 years old, standing in the locker room at Petersburg High, and they got a lady out there in the crowd that about to die wanting to see a Petersburg High football game. So as the preacher went on, she said when this mother was a young mother, years ago, she had 4 or 5 little kids, and she would, in the morning, one morning, she realized something was wrong, and she got up her little family, got out the house, and when she got outside, she realized the house was on fire, and the whole community was gathering around, and a terrible reality came over the woman. She had left a baby in the house. And she cried out as only a mother could cry. She said, my baby's in the house. And just then, the fire trucks were coming up, pulling up, and one young man heard and answered that cry. And he grabbed the coat and helmet off the fire truck, and he raced into that house, into that fire. And when he got inside, the fire was such, he had to get down on his hands and knees and crawl through that house, through that fire, and find that woman's baby. He put that baby inside the coat. He crawled out that house, out that fire. And when he came outside, it was as if the whole community was holding their breath. And he walked up to the woman, opened the coat, and said, woman, here's your baby. And the crowd burst into cheers. And just then the fire chief pulled up, and he couldn't get out his car for people running up to the car telling him about the heroics of this young fireman. He said, I can't believe my young fireman went into the house and saved that woman's baby. When I was driving up, I could see the flames from that fire clear across Decatur, Georgia. He said, I'd be proud just to shake that young man's hand. And the whole community followed the fire chief over to the truck, and the fire chief held out his hand. And just then, at that very moment, the oddest thing happened. Nobody stepped forward to shake his hand. For you see, the young man that went into that house and saved that woman's baby wasn't a fireman at all. He was a Petersburg High School football player. So you can't tell that woman how great those All-Americans are that play in the NCAA on Saturday. You can't tell her how great the All-Pros are that play in the NFL on Sunday, because she would tell you that the finest young men in the world dress in crimson and gold and play football for Petersburg High on Friday night. That's what she'll tell you. That's right. Well, I'm going to close now. You had your talk, you had your motivational story, and I tell you what, thanks everyone, thanks Bill, thank the nominating committee, thank all the coaches in my life, all the people in my life that helped me to become the coach that I am. And I say this from the bottom of my heart, thank you.
Our next inductee this evening is now the third member of the Hall of Fame to represent the sport of wrestling, and he did it at a Hall of Fame level. Michael Moore. Moore was part of the Petersburg class of 1974 and got his start in wrestling in the 8th grade on Peabody's first wrestling team and finished third in the district and regional tournament. During his time on the wrestling team, he was a 3-time Central District and Central Region champ and a 4-time state qualifier. After his high school career ended, he received a wrestling scholarship to attend Lock Haven University in Pennsylvania, and he continued to excel on the mat at the collegiate level. He was a 2-time PSAC conference champion and a 3-time national qualifier. He was Lock Haven's first 2-time Eastern League wrestling champion and was a Division I All-American. Moore also received a bid to the 1980 U.S. Olympic Wrestling Team Trials. He was inducted in both the Eastern League Wrestling Hall of Fame in 1989 and the National Collegiate Hall of Fame in 2012. After college, Moore returned to Petersburg to coach the Crimson Wave wrestling team. They won several district and regional titles under his watch, and he coached Petersburg's only 2 state champs, Kevin Turner and Charlie Branch. Moore's coaching success would lead him to Virginia State, where the Trojans won their first team state championship. He coached 11 All-Americans, won CIAA Coach of the Year in 1990 and 91, and was named NCAA Division II Southeast Region Coach of the Year. In 2005, Moore became the head coach at Matoaka High School and continued to make more history. He coached 15 state finalists, 11 of which won state titles. The Warriors won 3 regular season district titles, 5 district tournament titles, 4 regional championships, and 2 straight state championships in 2014 and 2015. Moore became the first black head coach to win a team wrestling title in the state of Virginia and the first black head coach to be inducted into the Virginia chapter of the National Wrestling Coaches Hall of Fame. And tonight, he can now add the title Petersburg Athletic Hall of Famer. Ladies and gentlemen, Mr. Michael Moore.
Good evening. First, I would like to give honor to God for the work that he did, for making it possible for me to be here, for Petersburg, for the support that is done, and the speech that I'm about to give that's going to directly relate to what Petersburg has done for me. I want to thank my family, my wrestlers, and everyone that I've had the opportunity and chance to be with. Before I get any further, could my family wrestlers that I've had and that was with my life that I've touched, please stand? Any of my family, my wrestlers? I thank you so very much. I have my guys that wrestle with me. When we first started, again, I started as an 8th grader. And the blessing was, in order to start this, I wanted to open up with saying how wrestling affected my life. But in reality, it has to start with how God chose to use wrestling as a tool. With that process, a lot of people never really know what took place with becoming, and this is a blessed time. Now, he said the 3rd time was a jewel, but I guess this time I have to say the 4th is really what made it all. In 1988, I was inducted into my first Hall of Fame from the EWL. That was Pitt, Penn State, Cleveland State, Clarion, and the remainder. In 1989, my college elected me into their Hall of Fame. Then the blessing came in 2012, where the nation decided to give an open look and put me in Salt Lake, Oklahoma, in their Hall of Fame. But all of the blessings come together when it's done at home. You know, when family, friends, and where everything started. I was blessed to be on Petersburg's first team, and then I was blessed there in 2019 to be part of the first team youth program that we started in Petersburg with Reverend Mack, with Mount Olive. And I guess, I don't know if Reverend Mack or his son is here, Jameson, who was here earlier. But through Mount Olive Church, again, they've come back to make a difference. And again, reflecting to the city. My testimony. And I guess to say that, I guess I was blessed at first with by starting in the 8th grade. I was a small guy. And by saying that with the class of 74, you know, I got Tony Threet that's here, Bubba, Tony, Moses. Hey, man, everybody, you know, all of my partners are, you know, 20 feet tall. I'm 2 feet, and so, hey. But everywhere we roll, so by being that little, I was that type of person, you know, every day I had, man, so I got to fight every day to prove my love. You know, I just had to fight to survive. And the blessing came, I had one of my buddies in Cool Spring by the name of Montague Winfield. He attended Virginia State. He was our first full bird colonel. And they said they had the program under Dr. Franklin Smith, who was my wrestling coach. And like I said, I constantly stayed in stuff. My mom took me off the football team because I'm constantly getting into stuff. And so the blessing came at this point where we used to play King of the Hill. Oh, man, good with that, you know. And then they came and said, look here, man, they have this new sport. That's what you mean, new sport. They said, wrestling, man. I said, hey, we see it on TV. No, man, you can do this and don't get in trouble. I said, what? Man, you can fight and don't get in trouble. I said, man, you joking. They said, all right. So from that, that was my blessing. So as an 8th grader, they had just started the program, and I had Stanlish Brown, Silas Leonard, and a whole lot of other guys. We opening this thing, and no one knew the sport, so best man win. So I got lucky as an 8th grader and placed 3rd in the district, 3rd in the region as an 8th grader. Oh, man, I'm hyped. I'm thinking things. That's the blessing. That's where I should be. So as a 9th grader, things started going well. Again, I won my district, qualified region again, qualified for the state, so I'm getting happy again. Came into my junior year. I mean, I'm thinking things really clicking. We had won our first district title. We won the regional title. Then Moses and them came behind us because we tournament comes 2 weeks before. We win the first, so they come back, they win the district, and they win the region. All right, they make us look bad, so we okay. Then as a junior year, we win the district and region again. They come back, they win the district, they win the region, and they win the states. So we look bad again. So, but during that junior year is where my blessings started to change. One of my great friends, Silas Leonard, we were outside at Hampton doing the state tournament. Unfortunately, I missed my match. By the time we got back in, Silas just did catch his match. At that time, he finished 3rd in the state with a hernia. I mean, about big as my fist. That's how tough. He probably was the best athlete, pound for pound, that I've ever seen. That's how just tough he was. But from that, I thought I was okay because I missed the match, so I said, all right, it'll be okay. I'll be back my senior year, and I'm going to make it all right. But that's when reality hit. As an 8th grader, I wrestled varsity. We had no idea at that time. So as a senior, I was ineligible. I'm ranked top in the state, but can't touch a mat. Because of that, the coaches, the schools thought that, you know, basically the kid had gotten in trouble. Why he lost, he's not on the mats anymore. So at that time, head down, but then again, you go to the faith of the Lord, and that's when it started. At that time, I couldn't wrestle anymore as a senior, scientific allegiance, everything in place, but unfortunately, I wrestled as an 8th grader. The Lord blessed me that at that time, Fort Lee had an all-Army team. So I couldn't wrestle as a senior, but Fort Lee brought their all-Army team to Petersburg with Dr. Smith to work out. And so I couldn't wrestle with my guys on the team at that point because of the anxiety and things in me. I was hurting my teammates, not one on the team. And so when that military team came in there, man, coach called, hey, Mike, we got the all-Army team. He's going, man, he just come in. He just had fun. And I came in, oh, man, it just changed my whole life. I was able to beat on these guys. They was grown, and it was okay, you know. So that gave me that little excitement that, hey, I'm going to be okay, but I had no direction of where I was going to go. School was then not on my mind because, again, I couldn't wrestle that senior year. But then, again, it's when the Lord stepped in. They had a reserve meeting at Fort Lee. And so happened the head coach at Lock Haven was at the reserve meeting. And when he went to the meeting, the reserve team said, hey, I don't know what y'all are doing, but they got this kid up at Petersburg you need to take a look at. He's not doing anything. The coach came to me at that time, watched me work out in the room with the Army guys, and offered me a full ride. You know, and at that time, the only question I asked, who do we wrestle? He said, you get to hit Penn, Oklahoma, UC. He named all the big schools. And I said, what do I have to do? He said, hey, if you think you can handle it. But he said, the only problem, you're coming from an area that's 99% black, and you're going to an area that's 99% white. I said, hey, what's my job? He said, a wrestle. So I said, white, black, Jew, Gentile, don't make me no different. Can I wrestle? And once that happened, and then he said, well, to make you feel better, you can get any of your 2 buddies to go with you, and we'll take care of them. And that's when, as you heard Coach Miles in front of me, we had the Parker twins. And they were my road dog. Call them Ugg and Mug. Call them that. They're fighting words. That's the only thing I would call them, make them get, hey, I get excellent workouts. So at that point, they gave me that ride, and when I went to school, you talking about one of the happiest, the coach came down, picked me up in the U-Haul. I'm feeling like the world. I get there, first 6-8 weeks, I'm banging the varsity. I'm on a roll. I'm feeling like I really belong. Hey, good gracious. But then I got my next test. The 8th week in school, there, every sport you play, you got to dress out. Tennis, you're in tennis uniform. Football, helmet, cleats, whole 9 yards, and play football, actual games. So I was in running back position, playing tailback, which I always used to play. And what happened? 8th week, I get clipped. Turn my knee out, 8th week in school. Your whole life then comes down, and you feel, Lord, why treat me this way? Instead of throwing it up and giving everything up, I still was able for maybe that first half of season to maintain weight, but because of the knee, I couldn't handle it. Got off of varsity, had to go to 150 JV. Cried, broke up, came home that summer, they gave me a surgery. My mom, little few tears in the eyes, my sister a little worried, hey, what they doing to you up there in that school? My dad, oh boy, you be tough, you be all right. So we got through that. Everything was fine. I came back the sophomore year, thinking things was in place. Came back, hey, things fell in place. 3rd in the conference, qualified for the nationals. I'm now ready to actually perform. No, the Lord hit you with another thing. Come back that year, I win the conference, I win the qualifier for the nationals. I'm all now set for great things I think that's happening. But then the Lord puts another test on me. I then started riding motorcycles. I had my brother-in-law's motorcycle, having a great time, acting like a fool. I'm coming down Halifax Street, a car stops in front of me, people start yelling and screaming. I have no idea. Car hits me in the back. When he hits me, thinking things was again, the Lord picks me in his hands. The car comes, I hear it squealing tires behind me. I look around, I see it, I turn back, but the car parked in front of me, I can't move. It's still screaming, the people are yelling. I look back, it's still coming. By the time I look back and grab it, the car pulls off, but the other car in the back smashes me in the back of the bike. At this point, again, my testimony says it became all the Lord's work. It knocks the bike from under me, but how I held the bike, pulled it back under me. When I pulled it back under me, when the car hit it the next time, it bent the bike in half. When it bent the bike, that's when the Lord just grabbed me in his hands. I stepped through like I was running a hurdle and ran a block up the street. When I stopped running, I was in front of Metropolitan Church. And I looked up at the church. I never touched the ground. But I blew my knee out, blew my back out, and my sister was driving down the street. When she was driving down the street, she saw the bike stuck in the car. And so she's crying and wondering, and I'm walking back down the street. I'm like, hey, why are you crying? I'm okay. You know, she looking, going, but again, the Lord kept that in blessing. And short, what changed that, at that point, after the doctors checked me, I went through all processes. 3 specialists at that time told me I would never wrestle again. I could never finish a season. They gave me all the things that I couldn't do. But in my heart, that's all I did. All my life was to wrestle. And now this is my senior, last year, and I had that choice. My lawyer said, you get big money, you don't wrestle, but I can't get you any money. If you think you're going to tell somebody you wrestle on a D1 schedule with a toe-up knee and back, I don't care if you're getting in traction every other week or every other day getting fluid drained. You have to make this choice. Either you wrestle or either you get this money. And at that point, I think, again, the Lord stepped in and said, hey, they can't tell me what I can do. You know, if I believe it, I have that chance and opportunity to achieve it. And at that point, and that's when I said the Lord did it all, that senior year when they told me I could not finish, I went 20-0. That year when they said I could not finish, I broke the school with 22 consecutive pins. That year that they said I could not finish, not only did I win the conference, not only did I win the qualifier for the Nationals, I finished 5th in the nation and with a bid for the Olympic team when they said I couldn't do it at all. So when I look back today, and when I look at my young people and everyone that's out there, if you believe it, you can achieve it, but you must understand that it's when God's willing to bring it, not you. You know, you might want something, but he knows. And he's already written it down when it's going to happen. And in closing, and I'm not going to do like everybody and keep it going, but in closing, what made the main difference and why I'm still standing here today, when we started that youth program, a month and a half ago, we had the state championships at Arthur Ashe Center. And I don't know if Dan remember when we had that torrential rain and it just rained for those 3-4 days. In the middle of that rain, we had the state championships, and I had my 8-year-olds. I was going to meet them at the Arthur Ashe Center. And I have Tyler Furr and a couple kids to see in here now that we had a rough time that Saturday because I had to be out of town. So when we went up there for the match for me to have them, so I'm driving, going through my mind, you know, what I'm going to do with the kids. All of a sudden, while I'm riding, I just started going in circles. I'm wondering, Lord, what the world? I done went into a hydroplane. 7:45 in the morning, I do 3 360s on 95. I mean, and it was full of traffic in it. When I 360s, my car didn't hit nobody. It didn't touch nobody. I was in the left lane. I ended up in the right lane hitting the Jersey wall. Again, I didn't get a scratch. I think my back and knee might have been a little bit, but when it hit the wall, the Lord straightened it up. And I mean, by the time I called the police, the state, and the record truck ended up dropping me off at the Arthur Ashe Center so I could finish coaching. And like I said to anyone, do not let anyone tell you what you can or can't do, because the Lord's work. And as long as you believe in him, nothing else matters. Nothing. So in the closing of that, and how happy and proud I am for things, how else the Lord blessed me in closing, my daughter, who's here in the shower, if she would stand, she was just selected. I wanted to be with her last night to Charlotte in North Carolina as the top 50 influencing women in Charlotte County. So I thank you, and I thank Petersburg for everything that they've done for me, for my family, and for everyone that's here. I say I love you. You have all of my blessings, and may the Lord take care of you each and every day. Thank you.
Started in the Tar Heel State, but became a Hall of Famer here in Virginia. Last inductee, Mr. David Young. Young was born in Washington, North Carolina, lived in Raleigh, then moved to Petersburg at age 8. He was part of the Crimson Wave, or Petersburg High School class of 1954. He was a 3-year letter winner in football from 1951 to 53. He was team captain his senior season and was selected to the Virginia All-State Group 1 team on both offense and defense. After graduation, Young would attend Randolph-Macon College, where he became a 2-sport star in both football and track. He was a starting guard on the Yellow Jackets football team all 4 years. During his junior and senior seasons, he was on the AP Little 8 team and was selected team captain his senior season. He was also selected as a first-team AP Little All-American, first-team AP Little 8. He received the Little 8 Sportsmanship Award, was a first-team AP Methodist College All-American, and received the Virginia Sports Writers Outstanding Little 8 Award. Those accomplishments had him inducted into the first class of the Randolph-Macon Athletic Hall of Fame. After his athletic career ended, Young went into medicine. He was accepted into MCV in 1958, took a 1-year internship and a year of surgical residence in Harrisburg, Pennsylvania, began his practice at Norfolk, and then started the Jordan Young Institute for Orthopedic Surgery. Young would retire in 2000, and since then has been involved in several community projects and humanitarian medical programs around the world, to include starting the Walking Free program, working with landmine victims in the Middle East. Ladies and gentlemen, the last member of the 2019 Athletic Hall of Fame class here in Petersburg, Mr. David Young.
First, I'd like to say that I am proud to be on the same stage with, I think, some absolutely wonderful people. And I think you have all done well and presented yourself well. And I'm proud of you. And I'm proud to be here with you. As you can see, I'm a little bit older than most of them, getting to be in my mid-80s. I've seen a lot of organizations, and I will have to say that this has been a well-organized, well-arranged event, and I'm proud to be here with it. to accept this award means more than you really think, because I was raised in Petersburg, in Colonial Heights, Virginia, and I loved every day of it. I met the love of my life, and we're married 58 years. And when I was at Petersburg High School, it was one of the best academic and athletic schools in the state. And we had a faculty and a coaching staff that was secondary to none. They taught us that you had to participate in the first class athletics and get a good education at the same time. And Petersburg High School is proud of the fact that it has graduated many good and successful student athletes. And they have all gone to have other great endeavors. While I was at Petersburg High School, I was a little different than Bob over there with his coaching. I had a great group of coaches, starting off with Roland Day, Randy Mallory, Bill Safko, and Ed Kavanaugh. And they could teach you how to get the best out of every individual that's there. And I can remember to this day what Coach Day said to me in my first year at Petersburg High School. He said, on any day, there are some that are going to be better than you, and some that are going to be worse. But you have to be the best that you can be every day. And if you can achieve this, you can be competitive. And I always took that with me, because no matter what you do, if you work and do the best that you can, you'll be surprised how much you can achieve. With the support and inspiration that I received here, I achieved more than I probably thought I would deserve in my football career and throughout my life. And reflecting back on my time at Petersburg High School, I can say that I enjoyed my experiences and my success. And it was on that foundation that it propelled me into what I personally feel was a fulfilling and meaningful life. Yes, this is a great honor, and I appreciate you considering me for this award. I would like to also have my family for coming with me tonight, and I appreciate my family and my friends. And I would have to say, after coming back to Petersburg, I know why people love it. And I'm proud to be here today, and I'm proud to be in this organization. And I thank you very much.
I shortchanged him. I didn't give him his title. It's Dr. David Young. I just said David Young. So congratulations to Dr. David Young.